But Columbus hasn't been able to choose his captains. They've been appointed by his financial backers. Diego and Francisco de Porras command Columbus's sister ship, El Santiago. The Porras brothers will undermine Columbus and destroy his reputation. Once again, on his fourth voyage, Columbus is relying on caravels for his exploration. This time he has 4 of them, each with a crew of about 30 men. Below decks, the hold is full of supplies, food, spare sails, and weaponry. On deck, there is all the rigging and sailing equipment, as well as cannons for defense and attack. Toward the rear is the steering area, below the raised quarterdeck, where most of the commands come from. The stern of the ship is curved at the waterline, the only way at the time to make it strong enough to withstand the power of the ocean waves. Fully laden, the whole ship weighs only about 100 tons, less than the weight of a blue whale. For 13 days, Columbus's flagship, the Capitana, with the rest of the fleet, carrying a total of 140 men, sails southwest along the coast of Africa towards the Canary Islands. Once again, Columbus has the latest ship technology and techniques at his disposal. The winds along the coast of Africa blow consistently from the south, so he rigs innovative triangular lateen sails that enable his fleet to sail at an angle towards the wind and to break out from Europe to the Atlantic Ocean. At the Canaries, Columbus's crews land to replenish their stores. They need to be fully supplied, because from now on, the fleet will be weeks beyond the nearest landfall. From this point, Columbus's maps of the Mediterranean and Africa will be of no use. But from his earlier transatlantic voyages, Columbus has unlocked the secrets behind the winds which blow across the ocean.
Some years ago, I learned that the westerly winds which blow year-round in the higher latitudes are as dependable as the easterlies, but in the opposite direction.
Sailing across the Atlantic is actually quite a straightforward process if you know your winds, because you can follow the northeast trade winds across from the Canaries, from Madeira, which will take you to the Windward Islands of the Eastern Caribbean. If you then move northwards, you can then follow the westerlies, which will then take you back to northern latitudes. So for your entire voyage round the ocean, you can always follow a circle with the wind behind you the whole way.
To take advantage of his knowledge of the prevailing winds, Columbus spends his time in the Canaries re-rigging his ships. He fits them with traditional square mainsails, ready to catch the wind which will blow from straight behind him, powering him all the way to the New World. The fourth voyage is Columbus's fastest crossing. Driven westwards by the trade winds, it takes just 21 days for the fleet of the master mariner to traverse the Atlantic. But after traveling so far, so fast, it suddenly seems that all that awaits them is disaster. Columbus, always alert to the elements, notices a strange change in the weather. He observes a calm in the air, abnormal currents and unusual cloud formations. It's a sign of a deadly Caribbean threat. To Columbus, it can mean only one thing: a hurricane. He has already lived through a hurricane on his second voyage. He knows something of their immense destructive power. The name hurricane comes from the Taino Indians, who had to battle them every year.
The Taínos called hurricane the evil spirit, but originally it was said Huracan was a god of the winds.
On average, the Caribbean is struck by a deadly hurricane with winds of up to 112 miles an hour over twice a year. When winds are over 70 miles per hour, a tropical storm technically becomes a hurricane and has enough force to smash a wall. At over 100 miles an hour, they can reduce a house to matchwood. A Category 5 blows at up to 150 miles an hour, hitting everything in its way with 11 tons of pressure. In fact, a single hurricane can contain enough power to fuel the world's energy needs for an entire year. In the 1500s, Columbus was one of the few Europeans who had experienced hurricanes before. Hurricanes at sea are particularly dangerous. Without obstacles, they can run freely across the ocean. Columbus knows that his fleet will never survive the coming storm. So he wastes no time sending a messenger to Ovando, his replacement as governor, warning him of the impending storm and begging for permission to land on Hispaniola. But Columbus knows he's going against the orders of the Spanish monarchs. They have only agreed to back the fourth voyage on the condition that he never sets foot in his own colony, Hispaniola, again.
By the time Columbus arrived at Hispaniola, his name was mud among the Spanish colonists. Nobody liked him. Everybody remembered his cruel and tyrannical rule as governor of the colony.
But Columbus has no choice. He desperately needs a safe harbor as refuge from the approaching storm. His messenger returns with the terrible news that Governor Ovando won't allow them to land on Hispaniola. Nobody on land believes a storm is coming. For Columbus, it is a devastating blow. He will now have to rely purely on his skill as a sailor to survive. Realizing that the hurricane is veering north of Hispaniola, he navigates his ships in the opposite direction. He anchors them in a sheltered bay, which he hopes will give some protection from the full force of the hurricane. As night falls, the hurricane strikes. The raw power of the ocean overwhelms them, tearing each vessel from its anchorage and scattering them out to sea. Columbus later recorded the terror of that night.
The storm was terrible, and on that night my ship was broken up. Everyone lost hope, and was quite certain that all the rest were drowned.
Eventually, the terrifying storm passes. Columbus and his ships have survived. By sheer luck and brilliant seamanship, they are able to regroup in a cove prearranged by Columbus, their ships relatively unscathed. But not everyone has been as lucky. Hispaniola's capital, Santo Domingo, is completely obliterated. 29 of the new governor's 30 ships and 500 lives have been surrendered to the sea. But Columbus still doesn't have permission to land on Hispaniola. So the exhausted crews have no option but to head out into the open sea. Columbus may have survived the storm, but now he and his tired fleet are set on an irreversible course into the unknown. It is the beginning of the lost voyage. Columbus left Spain on his final lost voyage over 50 days ago. He and his crew are lucky to be alive.
Y el Señor de la verdad y la Santa Trinidad, bendita sea el alma y el Señor que nos las manda, bendito sea el día.
Through good fortune and skillful sailing, the small fleet of 4 ships have survived the violent force of a hurricane at sea. But this amazing feat is merely the start of Columbus's lost fourth voyage. Many more dangers and extreme challenges lie ahead. Columbus has yet to complete his quest to find the westward sea route to Asia. He has yet to fill his holds with enough gold to make him rich. And he is yet to clear his reputation of the violence carried out in his name in his colonies.